Howdy! The purpose of this video is for you and I to have a quick chat about guitar finishes. And we'll be talking about this on a need-to-know basis for guitarists. And the reason for that is that as a guitarist or a guitar enthusiast, you don't really care about the chemical reactions in the finish compound before it's sprayed on your guitar. What you care about is looking at a guitar and knowing what is it about and how is it going to impact your playing. That's what matters. All right, so first, let's get our definitions straight. What's a finish? A finish is a layer or a coating that is applied to your guitar after it is painted or stained. A good finish will protect your guitar, so it's a protective layer, number one. Number two, it actually complements the looks of your guitar, so it's an aesthetic thing as well. But also it has a huge impact on how it feels to play that electric guitar. Glossy finishes are a little bit more sticky, so they provide more stabilization for your hand when you're playing, for example, picking with your right hand, if you're right-handed. On the other side, matte guitars are a lot more smoother, so it's a lot faster to slide your hand across. Now, some people also believe that the type of finish also impacts the final sound of your electric guitar. Now, guys, here we're going to talk about solid body electric guitars, and in solid body electric guitars, the pickup and the amp have the lion's share of the impact on the final sound of your electric guitar. Not so much the Tonewood or the coating of it, whether it be, paint or stain or the finish. There is an impact, but it's very minimal. There are three main types of guitar finishes. First one. All right. There are three different types of guitar finishes. First one is the oil finish. Second one is the one compound finish. And the third one is the two compound finish. But like I said, we don't care about these technicalities. So instead of going through each of these categories, I'm going to specifically bring out the common types of finishes that you hear or read about, so we can talk about those. But just know that these three categories are there, and whatever we're going to talk about belong to one of these categories. So let's talk about the first one, which is nitrocellulose. A lot of people love nitrocellulose, and for good reasons too. For example, nitrocellulose is very easy to buff to a high shine. Secondly, it is very easy to repair. Thirdly, and this is probably the one that you hear the most, it contributes to a vintage look in a guitar. And the reason for that is that as nitrocellulose ages, its color changes a little bit. So when you apply it to a guitar, and the guitar starts to get older, the guitar starts to age, it makes the guitar look like it is actually aging. And a lot of people love that vintage look. A lot. And lastly, a lot of people believe that nitrocellulose actually does not dampen the resonance of the wood in the guitar as the guitar is played. See, if you apply a layer of color, paint, finish, whatever on top of the guitar, what it does, it dampens the resonance, the vibrance of that guitar as the guitar is played. And so what that does, it actually impacts the tone of the guitar and the sustain of the guitar and so on. But like I said at the very beginning of this video, for a solid body electric guitar, this impact is not that much. Minimal. Again, the pickup, the quality of the build, and the amp take the lion's share of that. However, nitrocellulose does have some downsides. For example, it creates a very thin film over the guitar where it's applied, like a thin layer. But the issue is that that thin film doesn't fill any holes or any gaps or any imperfections in the guitar, which means that if the surface of the guitar that this is being applied to is not perfectly smooth, or if there's any imperfections, when you apply nitrocellulose to it, those imperfections will show. The second issue with nitrocellulose is that comparing it with other types of finishes, over time, it's more likely to crack. Now, if you do it very well, like experienced luthiers, established brands do, it makes it obviously less likely. However, that is one of the downsides. And then lastly, not every luthier or guitar builder actually uses nitrocellulose because one of the compounds in it is actually an explosion hazard. So it's highly flammable and it is an explosion hazard. So a lot of people actually don't like using it. But as a guitar player, you don't care, right? I mean, if it's dried on your guitar is not going to blow up. But it is a thing. Next, let's talk about acrylic and polyacrylic finishes. Now, these finishes are thicker than nitrocellulose. They maintain the looks of the guitar as the guitar ages, so they don't make your guitar look like it is aging. But also, given the fact that they're thicker, they actually provide a better protection for your guitar against dents, moisture, damages, and so on and so forth. And the same thing, by the way, applies to finishes such as epoxy, polyester, polyurethane. These are also thicker finishes, and as a result of that, provide better protection for the guitar, when it comes to scratches or dents or abrasions and so on and so forth. And they're very, very durable, actually. And by the way, I did put epoxy, polyurethane, and polyester together because they're very durable and they're thicker, but these are entirely different finishes, by the way. Don't think that I'm grouping them the same way because compound-wise, they're similar, because they're not. And the last category is the oil finishes, a little old school, but oils such as Danish oil being applied to the guitar as a finish. And by the way, these finishes are easy to apply and they're easy to repair. However, they provide the least amount of protection comparing with the other types of finishes that we just discussed in this video earlier on. Now, so far we talked about the main types of electric guitar finish. What we didn't talk about is matte versus gloss on the finish of the electric guitar. Now, when it comes to matte versus gloss on an electric guitar, it is predominantly a function of two things. Number one, the type of material used. For example, you have matte polyurethane and you have gloss polyurethane. They're both polyurethane, but they're different types. So number one, the type of material that you use in your finish actually matters, obviously. But then secondly, is that how you treat that material. For example, there are heat treatments of finishes. If you buff or polish a finished material, you can make it glossy. So the second factor is how it is actually treated. So here's a quick guide on the terminology used to explain the degree of gloss in an electric guitar. Flat or matte refers to 0 to very low shine. Eggshell is low shine, but slightly more reflective than matte, and you can literally imagine eggshells. It's like that. Satin, very, very commonly used on electric guitars, is low to medium shine. It's kind of like that middle ground. Semi-gloss is noticeable shine, but not as reflective as high gloss. And gloss or high gloss is high levels of shine and very, very reflective. So as an example, this guitar is high gloss. As you can see, it is very reflective. The second example is this guitar, one of my absolute favorites, by the way. So it kind of has a shine, but it's kind of matte, isn't it? It's that middle ground. This is a satin finished electric guitar. And that's really about it. When it comes to what we as guitar players and guitar enthusiasts need to know about guitar finishes, it's actually pretty simple. But a final thought that I wanted to share with you is that despite all the stuff that we talked about in this video, always buy your guitar based on the sound and the feel that you experienced, not theory and slogan. Ultimately, not all guitar finishes are the same, and not all guitars are finished the same way. So you might read gloss or matte or satin on a website, or a salesperson might tell you any of these things. But the fact of the matter is, guitars vary from one to another a lot, and there are a lot of different factors that actually impact the playability and the sound and the feel and the look of an electric guitar, finishes are just one out of the many, many components. And it's important to keep that in mind. And that's about it. Thanks so much for hanging out. Take a good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.